Welcome to Beat Diabetes. On today's program, we'll hear from a man who went on an 11-day cross-country motorcycle trip, and he will reveal just how easy and simple it is to stay keto and keep that glucose under control while traveling. The key word is simple. Here is a lady who says, many years ago when I was 10 years old, I went with my parents to visit a great uncle in a nursing home. A great uncle. I don't even know if I would have a great uncle. Probably if I did, he wouldn't be alive now. He had diabetes, she says. He lost both legs at the knees and both arms, one at the elbow, one near the shoulder. So both legs cut off at the knees, one arm cut off at the shoulder, the other at the elbow. Wow. He wore glasses with lenses so thick you couldn't see his eyes through them. He literally was a stump sitting on a bed. I never forgot that sight. Well, I can believe that. I don't think I would either. It has always been enough reminder to encourage me to do everything I can to avoid diabetes. If only they knew then what's known now about the proper way of eating to avoid the horrible consequences of uncontrolled diabetes. And I like that she added the word uncontrolled. You can control diabetes and bring it down to its knees to the point where it's no longer making complications. But yeah, she visits a relative who's had his arms cut off, his legs cut off. He wears glasses so thick you can hardly see his eyes. And he is an object lesson of what diabetes can do. Does that work that way for everybody? Does it do that to everybody? No, of course not. That's a worst-case scenario. But that's the insidious thing about diabetes. It attacks people differently. It's like some kind of a snake determined to get into your home and do damage, but it'll come in by different ways. So sometimes it may sneak in when the door's open, or it may come through an open window, or it may sneak through a crack in the bricks. It's just looking for a way to get in and create harm and havoc. And the harm and havoc it creates can be different with different people. But we're under attack. But there is another scenario. Now, granted, this is absolutely a horrible scenario and worst case for sure. But how about this? Here's a person who has no diabetic complications, but he's running with high blood sugar, and he has definite insulin resistance, and he has a heart attack at the age of 58 and dies. There are no diabetic complications that this person had as far as he knew. He had no neuropathy. He had no bad vision. He saw perfectly well. He didn't have to urinate all the time like some do. He just had no symptoms, no amputations, no blindness, no symptoms. Seemed like he was doing great. Boy, he was managing his diabetes well because he had no symptoms, but he was running high glucose all day long every day. And then one day he drops dead of a heart attack. Well, you say he was blessed in that he avoided symptoms. Yeah, but 58's too young to die. We should trust God and try to take the necessary steps to live into our old age if possible. Granted, we don't have total authority over that, and it can be different for different ones. But so however diabetes comes at you, whether it attacks your eyes or your kidneys, whether you get an amputation or you seem to be pretty much symptom-free, whether you start having heart attacks or strokes, and sometimes it can be almost all of the above. But it's a bad guy no matter what, and we need to avoid it no matter what and not take chances. The idea that, well, so far I don't seem to have any symptoms. I think I can just cruise on in and get through my life without any major symptoms. Maybe a few can, probably most will not. And it's definitely not worth taking the chance. The sad thing is that while we're developing or becoming a target of the insidious attacks of diabetes, we may feel fine for a long time, and yet, sooner or later, we feel that attack. Well, I did a video about emergency foods, foods that you can eat while traveling or when you are out somewhere and you just need a low-carb food. This person says, I just did an 11-day cross-country motorcycle ride. That sounds fun. I always loved motorcycles. I had several of them when I was young, and I don't think Benedicta would allow me to ride one anymore. But this person says, keto is easy. For starters, I don't get very hungry on keto. One meal a day is usually fine. I can usually do breakfast and dinner, so 2 meals a day oftentimes. My breakfasts were what I call a gas station breakfast. Almost any big highway station has boiled eggs and cheese. Add some coffee and I'm good. So boiled eggs, yeah, I think boiled eggs are wonderful. They're filling and they're tasty. And you can have a couple of boiled eggs and you don't need much else. Maybe a little cheese, a little this, a little that. You don't need too much else. When I'm in Africa, most of the restaurants that most of the hotels that we stay at have boiled eggs. And if I see that they got boiled eggs, I can kind of relax. Okay, I'll be fine for breakfast. I can add a low-carb bar or a few peanuts or this or that, or some cheese, and I'll be just fine. So if you can find boiled eggs, you're good. And then he says, dinner, I'd treat myself to a steak and salad most days, or a hamburger and salad like you suggested, which I had suggested, just get a hamburger without the buns and eat the meat and then have a salad with it. So it's almost like a steak and a salad. In America, we have it easy because there's almost no place you can go anywhere where you can't get some kind of a low-carb meal. Even the little convenience shops will have their nuts and seeds, and a lot of times they'll have chicken in a warmer that you can buy some roasted chicken. There's almost no place you can go in our whole country that you can't find low-carb foods that will fill you up, and you don't have to get stuffed. However, I am very much aware that in many of the developing nations like India, like Africa, and especially those who live in villages, not in the big cities, it can be much harder. And then when you add to that just how highly carb dependent these nations are. I mean, Americans stuff themselves with carbs like crazy, for sure. But it's not so much a cultural thing as it is they're available and we enjoy them, so we'll eat them. I don't think most Americans are eating their chips and their French fries because they're afraid they'll look bad in front of everybody else. They just enjoy them. But in some of these countries, like in India, if you don't eat chapati, there's a cultural price you will pay. Some of your own friends and family will say, what's wrong with you? You don't eat our chapatis? What is going on? And in Africa, especially Nigeria, where Benedicta's from, if you eat soup and you don't eat fufu, people will look at you like you've lost your mind. What is wrong with you? Soup without fufu? I mean, that's practically illegal. So there is not just the fact that they taste good and you're used to eating them. There is a cultural pressure on you to eat carbs, eat a lot of carbs. And it takes a little guts. It takes a little courage to say, people may look at me like I'm crazy. That's okay. My health is more important. And you know what? If they love you, they'll put up with you and they'll leave you alone after a while. They may make a comment or two at first. When I met Benedicta, she didn't know anything about low-carb eating or why I did it. But she loved me and I loved her, and she learned to adapt to it. And now, of course, she has some knowledge about exactly why I do it and why it's good and so forth. But even if you don't convert your family or friends, chances are, if they know you're doing it for your health, they'll leave you alone after a while. So you just got to do what you got to do. There's always a way to make a low-carb diet work. I don't care where you are. You may be in a little village in Tanzania. You can make it work. It's going to be more difficult for you than it would be for an American. But people do difficult things all the time. Difficult doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means it's harder to do it. But your health is worth it. You are worth it, my friend. You are worth it. Because if you're doing life right, let me say this again, if you're doing life right, there are people that need you around. Family, friends, people that your life can be a blessing. And they need you. They don't need you to die early. They don't need you to be so messed up in your health that you really can't hardly do anything. They need you to be healthy. They need you to live long. And you're not only doing it for yourself, you're doing it for them. So care about others, care about yourself, and live out your life the best you can. Now, if you don't end up living to be 95 years old, that's okay. We're all going to die sometime. But we owe it to do the best we can, to live as long as we can, and do as much good as we can for everybody else, and enjoy life for ourselves.